Ricky Kidd here with I Am Resilience. Wrongfully convicted for 23 years, but I'm finally home and I'm happy to be here. Happy to be able to kick off the first annual International Wrongful Conviction Day live stream event, where we are raising awareness about the cause and remedies for wrongful convictions right here in America. This year's theme is fighting for justice and accountability. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. Today, we're going to be talking about Lamar Johnson, an innocent man who has spent the last 25 years in prison for a crime that he absolutely did not commit. Many people across the nation believe that Lamar Johnson is innocent, including Circuit Attorney out of St. Louis City, Kimberly Gardner. We're going to hear from her. We're going to hear from Lamar. But before we get started, I want to play a clip by KCTV5, Angie Ricono. You will be amazed. Check it out.
God has another plan for me. It's got to have a different purpose for me than to die here. And I believe I believe it's eventually the right thing is going to be done. I have to believe that.
This is Lamar Johnson, and the interview you just saw took place almost 1 year ago. Johnson swears he's innocent, and even the current prosecutor agrees. But tonight, Johnson is still behind bars. So how does something like this even happen? Here's investigative reporter Angie Ricono.
It's hard to compress Lamar Johnson's legal case into a few words. But here are the facts. In 1994, a man named Marcus Boyd was shot and killed in St. Louis. Lamar Johnson was suspected of the crime. He had an alibi and thought speaking with police would clear things up. He's now spent more than half of his life in prison. 26 years have rolled by.
This call is from a correctional facility and may be monitored and recorded.
Visitors are now limited inside Jefferson City Correctional Center, so we recently spoke to Johnson by phone.
They just made up a case, and I don't know how else to say it. I hate to be able to say it, but that is exactly what happened. There's no motive, no physical evidence, nothing to say that I had something to do with this case.
There are so many details in the investigation and trial which seem shocking in hindsight, especially that an eyewitness, who was paid by the old prosecutor, provided crucial testimony that Lamar Johnson was the gunman, even though the shooting took place in the dark and the killer wore a full face mask like this. It makes any rational person question, could you really identify a stranger in a full face mask?
Everything was made up at the police station, and that's something that should be terrifying to anybody, that you can just pick somebody up and just make a case up and send them to prison for the rest of their life. That is crazy.
Years ago, St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner took another look at the case. After all, others have admitted to the crime and even wrote apology notes. It took Gardner a full 70 pages to outline everything that went wrong. She doesn't mince her words, using phrases like unconstitutional police investigation and prosecutorial misconduct on the very first page. She ends her summary flat out calling what happened as Johnson's wrongful conviction.
It was like, wow.
Johnson and his legal team finally had hope. Gardner filed a motion asking for a new trial, but a circuit court judge decided there should be a legal counterbalance. That's when Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt stepped in and legally argued a prosecutor shouldn't advocate for a defendant.
All rise.
That issue is now before the Missouri Supreme Court.
Does Kim Gardner and other prosecutors have a right and a mechanism to go into court and say we made a mistake?
Johnson's legal team understands the gravity of this issue. Lamar's freedom hangs in the balance. But what's decided here will affect prosecutors across the state who review old cases.
He's somewhat confused that everything's out in the open and the facts are out, and he's still waiting for a hearing for sure. He's a little frustrated.
When all this broke out, there was a lot of news reporting about it, and it seemed like it was on everybody was interested in the story. But now it just seems like it's kind of fading away.
What is it going to take?
A lot has happened in the years since we visited Lamar in prison. In this interview, no one wore a mask or worried about a pandemic. Lamar Johnson was tearful at times, explaining police and prosecutors don't always get it right. He just really wished someone checked his phone records decades ago. We recently asked him about the social justice wave sweeping the nation and the Black Lives Matters movement. His answer might surprise you.
I want people to know that regardless of whether you're white, black, Republican, or Democrat, that this could happen to anybody.
Lamar says it happened to him. He's told the truth, but now he questions what's more important, truth or technicalities.
It's just amazing to me that you really get down to the just the grit of this case. I'm being denied just a simple hearing because of procedural technicality, and that just cannot be more important than the possibility of somebody being wrongfully in prison for the rest of their life. Missouri can do better. They can do better.
Every week, Johnson waits for the Missouri Supreme Court to rule on if he can get a new trial. They held the hearing back in April, meaning 5 months have now rolled by. We'll keep you posted on his case. In Kansas City, Angie Racono, KCTV5 News.
That was a news clip from Angie Racono from KCTV5 highlighting the unbelievable aspect and perspective that surrounds why Lamar Johnson continues to remain in prison. We are going to continue to keep our eye on this and fight and push and get behind Lamar and his entire team until he comes home, and we'll keep you posted at resilienceMode.com. But I want to bring to you today the interview that I was able to have with Circuit Attorney Kimberly Gardner. She took the time to sit down with me not too long ago, and this is what she had to say. Without further ado, let's talk solutions with District Attorney out of St. Louis City, Kimberly Gardner.
Mr. Kidd, how you been doing?
Hey, Kim. How are you?
Fine, fine. I would love to be called a district attorney. Well, I am the district attorney like everywhere else, but I'm called the circuit attorney in the city of St. Louis, which I don't know why, but that's what we call it. And then everybody else is called prosecuting attorney, even in the county. So I'm the only circuit attorney in the whole state of Missouri. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is that special or is that a diss? Is that what is? I mean,
I know. I think it's special, but I don't. I think that's what happened a long time ago. Before I took this office, and it's been called circuit attorney. So
okay, yeah. She's a circuit attorney for St. Louis City, and then there's a St. Louis City and a St. Louis County, right?
Yes, and Wesley Bell, who's in the county, is called the prosecuting attorney of St. Louis County. So I think it's because I'm a county within a county. St. Louis City and St. Louis County is kind of weird, I'm a county of a county. So I think that's maybe where the distinction comes from previously with the Great Divide of St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
Yes. How long have you been a prosecutor?
Well, I've been the elected prosecutor for almost 4 years, and I was re-elected August 4th. I still have a general, so knock on wood. Hopefully I take it all the way to serve another 4 years. But I was prior an assistant circuit attorney for 5 years. So I've been practicing law since 2003, and a prosecutor for 5, and so about 9 years as a prosecutor. I worked in private practice also, so I have a varied background as well as being inside the office. Okay, what led you? Well, let me say this first. When I talk to law students, and I've talked to many since I've been home, I talk to them about the integrity in their advocacy. They're bright-eyed, they bushy-tailed, they're passionate, they're ready for change. As a criminal defense lawyer, as a prosecutor, some want to be judges, and I want them to be. I tell them, listen, just because I was wrongfully convicted and exonerated, I'm not telling you need to be a criminal defense lawyer. We actually need good prosecutors that carry integrity with them in the office, along with their passion. It's not enough just to have passion, but to have integrity as well. I want to ask you this: go back just a little and take us to what made you decide to become a prosecutor. Why was that an important decision for you? Well, actually, one of the things that I wish that I knew that I know now is I really did not understand the power of a prosecutor. I was like everybody else. When I went to law school, actually, I actually never wanted to be a prosecutor or a defense attorney. I actually just wanted to help protect the rights of people in terms of the healthcare industry and how we have a healthcare disparity, not knowing that these disparities actually converge in the criminal justice system. So when I worked with a mentor who, when I got my first job, he was a general practitioner. That meant he did all kind of cases, civil, domestic, family, criminal. And he basically told me, he said, hey, if you want to really know how to practice law, you need to go to the prosecutor's office, go there for 5 years and get some experience, and then come back into private practice. And so based off of, where I'm born and raised in North City, and the prosecutor is like the police and where I come from. And so I had to open my mind, and fortunately that I took his advice, and that kind of taught me the power of a prosecutor and the discretion of a prosecutor, and how important it is if you're trying to really reform a system that we all see from many different angles, and we know it has issues and we want to make it fair. You need to work within. And I believe a prosecutor is a very important role that no one until post Mike Brown started to really pay attention to the power of a prosecutor and the prosecutor's offices. Bad actors, because I look at Lamar Johnson, when we look at wrongful convictions, and conviction integrity units, one of the things in Missouri, which you said, and we only had one in 2019. Well, why is that? Is because we have a system that is protected by the powerful few who do not want officers like myself to have a conviction integrity unit. And right now, my conviction integrity unit is in limbo with the Lamar Johnson case, because basically this Supreme Court is going to decide, do we have the will in Missouri to allow the local prosecutor to correct wrongful convictions that they uncover with their conviction integrity units? And do we have the will that we have a mechanism that's a motion for new trial? And you would think every person in the criminal justice system would say this is the integrity of the whole system. If a wrongfully convicted person is languishing in prison for a crime they did not commit, everyone needs to get together and do something. But we have people who have this method of this is their lane, and the lane the attorney general is arguing that all post-conviction relief issues should go to them. And we know that when and last time has the attorney general overturned a wrongful conviction? It's like you fight 15, 20 years through every level of appeal and all kind of different costs, which that individual person doesn't have the money to keep things going on. And so we have to really deal with wrongful convictions. We have to have appropriate mechanism, and I believe that it should not be controlled by the legislator, because they also can make it difficult or a higher burden to help correct wrongful convictions. And I believe it's about doing the right thing. I don't think any prosecutor, regardless of your political affiliation, believes that a person in prison for a crime they did not commit is right. And I believe we should have the mechanism, we should have the will to correct wrongful convictions. And I believe we should have the will, even if it happens in our tenure, it's not us, but we should be able to correct that and mitigate why that never should happen. And it's a learning tool for prosecutors of what not to do and what we're not going to do. And I think that that's where we as a group have to actually admit that no one is perfect. We have to actually admit when things go wrong, and we have to correct the wrong. And that's how we build trust in the system that some people do not find trustworthy. And I believe that it's not saying that we have done, to me, you do wrong when you hide it, or you are complicit silence of that. This doesn't happen, and it can happen in many different ways. And it's not like some people are intentionally trying to cover up and do things, but there are some bad actors that could be. And you want to have the mechanism where you can hold people in your office, regardless of they're still currently in your office or not, accountable. And if you look at, like you said, Pennsylvania has laws similar to us, but you know the difference? The difference is Larry Krasner, and the courts usually, I'm not saying it's easy, but usually, I'm not saying that's all Larry Krasner's cases, but usually if a prosecutor comes and says, hey, this person is wrongfully convicted, usually the courts and everybody else come and they start to try to figure out how to get this person out. But here in Missouri, it's the battle of right or wrong, and it's a battle of social bullying as well as political bullying, because I'm the first African American circuit attorney, and the attorney general chooses to attack myself, and they're not focusing on Lamar Johnson, and that's what's at stake. Because how can we have a conviction integrity unit if Lamar Johnson is not free? I mean, it's ridiculous. He spent 25 years in prison. Let him out.
Yes.
I mean, I don't
Yes.
care if the attorney general wants to get him out, go ahead, get him out. I don't care who takes credit for it. He needs to be out, as well as other wrongfully convicted individuals. And we have to do the right thing. And because, like I said, it hurts all of us if we continue to have people languishing in prison like yourself and like Lamar Johnson for no reason other than political bullying, as well as, and we're not doing him justice or his family justice. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is definitely disgusting. And I just want to admit, so beautifully spoken. Uh, I really do. It is my sincere prayer. It is my sincere prayer that people look at you and others like you as the new model moving forward in St. Louis. Let me ask you this when it comes to problem and solution. Um, false snitch testimony. False snitch testimony. Um, the National Registry of Exoneration says 59% of wrongful convictions is a result of false snitch testimony. Many states are passing new legislation that helps curb that. Connecticut, Oklahoma, Nebraska, just last year, where I'm at now, just passed some legislation that that requires the prosecutor to make this information available, to turn over more that they might know, and to maybe test the testimony. There's certain standards where have this guy done it many times before? What is the likeliness that he would have come in contact with this information as authentic as he has said? Those type of things. Lamar Johnson, you talk about Lamar Johnson. Of course, I know Lamar personally. Many people know that already. And a part of his case had some of that in there. An individual, and this part is safe, came forward like this is his first time, and he's just doing the right thing, and lo and behold, he's made a career out of getting himself in trouble. When he get in the county, he listen and look, pick up a piece of information here, and goes to the police and ultimately the prosecutor and said, this guy has confessed. The prosecutor take it, run with it, don't really vet it, don't really scrutinize it, and then ultimately send an innocent person to prison. What is your take on that, and what is the solution?
Well, I think that you said it. We have to some way legislate a lot of these practices, because it starts with, the interrogation with Lamar Johnson. I'm gonna use him because it shows kind of pretty much every level, every part. The interrogation from the police, the actual witness that the police put up individual in a lineup, and that person was not able to identify anyone, but all of a sudden they were kind of prompted to identify individuals, and that led to the charges. Well, you had an admission of a police officer that came later under federal investigation, which puts that person's credibility that Lamar Johnson made a statement into question, as well as when the prosecutor knew about the jailhouse informant that this person had a record, extensive record. At that time, I don't know if he was a kind of a repeat jailhouse informant, but that should have been turned over to the defense attorney. That should have been turned over to the defense attorney, as well as if the prosecutor knew by some of the things that they were doing that there was a benefit to testify, and he should have been impeached by turning over that information. And that's the prosecutor's problem, that they didn't turn over there, as well as payments for which we do participate in moving victims because they're afraid, but in terms of payments like that should have been turned over to impeach the witness. So there's many things that I think that when you look at that investigation of how identification, the ID practices, which I believe it should be a standard practice, because that police department determines how they conduct lineups. And we have, Missouri and St. Louis City, particularly, police department is known to be notorious for needing better standardized practice with lineups in terms of how we utilize that evidence. And that's where I think legislation will help, because that gives them a basis and a framework that they have to address those lineups and witnessed issues from that particular point, but we still have to review it. And that's where a prosecutor's office has to review and be unbiased to one. I think that's why, we talk a lot about, doing the right thing and not trying to make things fit. And so I think that comes with training inside your office of what to see, when to see, and what you need to really evaluate case by case, for a case. I believe, sometimes people have the pressure, when you have pressure from convictions, which a lot of times we're not judged by convictions, we should not be, but that perpetuates that force to make this fit. And I think that mentality of what they try to judge prosecutors on perpetuate wrongful convictions, because if you're judged by conviction rates, that means that you have to have certain number of cases, fit. And you have to have certain wins if you're using it as your benchmark of success, which that's where, we have a 97 felony conviction rate, but trials are less than 3% of our caseload. And so we have to look at, we want to do the right thing. And, just because we can charge, we want to win the right way. And so that's where you have to use conviction integrity units, and I use Lamar Johnson to really have a framework of teaching a lot of the younger attorneys what to look for and issues that you need to identify and say no. At that point, you need to talk to a supervisor, and then we need to figure out if this is appropriate. And so I think that that's where conviction integrity units are important if they're set up right. And I know some people say, well, prosecutors shouldn't have conviction integrity units, they're biased, they're to protect their own. No, it's not to protect your own, because really we have a duty to do the right thing. And I believe that these conviction integrity units can teach these lawyers what not to do. And I believe it also highlights that if you look at New York, who has one of the most robust, who was former Ken Thompson, created that, now Eric Gonzalez, and they have the benchmark, the Cadillac of success. But even they are saying that conviction integrity unit is really instrumental in how to identify problem prosecutors that they need to move out of that office, or as well as training. So I think that these can be powerful. They can educate, they can actually alert those bad actors that you need to deal with in another way. But I think that we have to have one. And as you know, only 1.5% of the prosecutor's office out of 2,300 around the country have a conviction integrity unit that really address these issues. And we have to me, have legislation to require every prosecutor's office to have a conviction integrity unit. I think every prosecutor's office should have it set up in a way to address these issues in a uniform way, but still give that prosecutor discretion. But I think it has to be funded where we have the ability to do what we need to do, because these are very labor intensive. It takes a long time. You need a lot of skills. You see how long it takes the Midwest Innocent Project and other innocent projects of the ACLU to really dive into these cases. So you have to really have a unique investigative capacity, as well as a unique skill set to really look at these cases. And you have to look as well as re-interview a lot of people if they're still around. But you have to put the pieces together. And I think you need to have the time to do that, as well as dedicated people that can do this work, and because that is just as important as holding that conviction, or holding that person accountable for a conviction. But you don't want the wrong person to be locked up. So I think that we have to have a requirement of all prosecutors, regardless of where you at on the reform spectrum or not. You must have a conviction integrity unit, and it must do certain things to prevent what you're saying, prevent those rogue police officers or rogue prosecutors from doing things unchecked. And there needs to be some kind of accountability, a public accountability board that looks at what that prosecutor is doing, so they can also see, hey, is this prosecutor using the conviction integrity unit in an appropriate way? But that's where we have to get to. And I believe that, we have to, have this concept develop, because most prosecutors say we look at wrongful convictions. But yeah, and people say they have conviction integrity units, but do they? Not really.
What can family advocates or community advocates do who believe their loved one or is innocent, or who believe in this cause and push? What can they do to support people like you and offices like yours? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think first we have to really support, even though we're not supposed to be on the same side, but we still have to support the Midwest Innocent Project, who's done a lot of good work, and make sure that they can help support that organization, who based off of donations, really help represent people who have loved ones that are wrongfully convicted. I think we have to push in terms of advocacy, legislative wise. We need to have a vision of this next legislative session to really address wrongful convictions and have people like yourself and others from communities really tell legislators, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, this is tearing down the integrity of the criminal justice system. And if you want safe communities, then you should pay attention to wrongful convictions. I think that we can push advocacy to really highlight this issue. I think in this time now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to push how we can look at, sentences, reconsideration for individuals who, because they're medically ill, that they need to be released to spend whatever time with their family members because of this dangerous pandemic. We need to push for that because that's a public health crisis that we've never experienced before. And I think that there's a lot of issues with prisons right now in terms of the growing caseload and how we appropriately take care of people that we actually put here and say, this is your resident now. And so we have to make sure we protect them. So I think there's a lot of advocacy I would love to see. And really, as Kansas City, you guys have a lot of the support, but we need to build that infrastructure in the St. Louis region, which I think now working with, many different, like yourself, your organization, as well as many others, I would love to start a chapter here so we can start having this conversation, because I believe that one of my goals moving forward for my term is to really address the trauma with families of incarcerated individuals and how that really paralyzes the family, and it prevents them from sometimes not moving from their loved one, but even engaging with their loved one, as well as making sure that person, when they come home, they have a stable environment to come home to and an actual stay at home plan. So I would love to really work with returning citizens like yourself to really address how we strengthen our conviction integrity unit, how we have a better reentry program, as well as opportunities for the incarcerated, family population to get them the services they need. Because, when you look at Lamar Johnson's family members, and I say them because I feel for them, them daughters crying, probably have never seen their father, other than behind a jail cell. It's so difficult to go and visit, and how families have to engage when they visit their loved one. It's a lot to take in, and that's trauma. And the trauma of your father being wrongfully convicted, and in their mindset that he's never probably seen their kids, or, people have probably passed since he's been, it's a lot of things that individuals incarcerated, regardless of you're wrongfully convicted or not, have to deal with. So we have to do a better job of engaging. And I actually want to start a program where lawyers go up and have CLEs with incarcerated individuals, because I think that also shows that connection that people are in these prisons. And so as prosecutors, we get caught up in, 20 years versus 25. I'm not saying this means we don't give people long periods of time, but we have to understand where they're going. And so we have to do a better job, that you have a duty to understand, these are people's lives. I'm not saying that people are not sentenced to long periods of time. I have to hold people accountable who will commit the most heinous crimes, but we have to also understand where we're going, and understanding that there should be programs in these prisons, returning citizens, as well as people in there who want to better themselves for when they come out. And we don't have accountability of the Department of Corrections like we should. That's the system. So I think it's imperative that I show up and be a part of this. And, we have to, because right now what we're facing is we have people who want to take it back to a way of life in a period that it's not inclusive of everybody. And I think that we have a moral duty to do the right thing, and we have to promote human dignity and respect for all, regardless of where you are in any system. And it's about being our brother's keeper. So I believe that it's imperative that prosecutors be a part of this movement. I know a lot of people don't agree with a lot of things that I do, but I think it's a moral responsibility to be a person who wants to change and wants to be about bringing reform to our state of Missouri. And I believe that we have to fight against the powerful few who chose to try to bully the elected prosecutor. But what I want to say, and you can't be afraid of change. You can't be afraid of your position. You have to do the right thing, because I want to go home at night and be able to look at my community that elected me and say, at least I tried, and I'm going to do something, because I didn't sign up to just be a figurehead. So I think that we got to continue to promote the fight, and the fight is equal justice under laws for everyone. And that's what's crucial. And I think that's what's powerful about you, Ricky, and the other individuals that were let out, and because they were wrongfully convicted. And I saw that it's a diverse group, and you guys come together, different backgrounds. It's probably individuals that you would never think you would talk to or be friends with. But I think that you guys set an example that, it can happen to anybody. And unfortunately, that is the case in some instances.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again so much, Kim, for being with us today. And I definitely will be following up in the foreseeable future on action. So we talked problem, solution, and then action. We have to get to the action part next, guys, and we're going to get to the action part. Feel free to inbox me at info@resiliencemode.com if you want to know more about how you can get involved. Let those emails filter in, because when we go, we will follow up on this. And when we come up with a solution or some actionable plans, we're going to need volunteers to help execute those and assign different tasks to individuals. So let's not just let this be a show, or let this not just lie on the shoulders of Kim, but on all of us as a community. Together, we get to do this. Thank you again, Kim. God bless you. Safe travels to you there. Absolutely. You will. You as well. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It is not every day that we get to hear from circuit attorneys or district attorneys across the country weigh in about wrongful convictions. And it's very rare that we actually get to see them put their hat in the game, so to speak, and fight on the behalf of those they believe are wrongfully convicted. But we did today. Kimberly Gardner out of St. Louis City, circuit attorney. That was who you just heard. She, rather, is who you just heard from. But listen, I want to make sure that you get the full scope and the full problem when it comes to wrongful convictions. How do we do that? One of the ways, I believe, is to hear from the innocent individuals themselves. Lamar Johnson, he was able to sit down with me as well. He called in. I was able to record a few minutes of our conversation. I want you to take a listen.
One of the things that's a big complaint about a lot of us in prison is that we file these habeas petitions, and they just get summarily denied. And it could be because we don't have attorneys, and that could be because the state, the legislators refuses to give the public defender office the resources that it needs to handle cases once they've gotten that far down the road. But that's just one of the big problems with why a lot of us in here, we can't be heard. And that's what makes what you're doing so good now, because it's another way for us to get our stories out there so that people can begin to have an awareness about what goes on with the system and what needs to be reformed.
Yeah.
This call is from a correctional facility and may be monitored and recorded.
And that's a reminder of where we at. That's a reminder of where innocent people continue to be when they shouldn't be, bro. How many years has it been for you?
November, it will be 26 years. So I'm like a month or two away from that. Was this September, October, November? Yeah, the beginning of November 3rd, I was locked up. The case happened on October 30th. So I'm just two months away from being 26 years in prison.
Yeah. What did it feel like from day one when you knew you was innocent and they first charged you? What did it feel like? What was going through your mind?
Well, I was sure that this was going to be settled out once I got arrested and taken down for questioning. And I told them where I was. I told them that I was on the phone with the victim's girlfriend right after that, and my daughter's mother. And here's where I was. This is who we can talk to. Told them about my relationship with the victim and how we were friends. I had no reason to want to do anything to him, and it wasn't heard. I don't know. They didn't care. I mean, that's what it feels like. And so when I, usually you say, you get locked up, and then they tell you, well, they issue charges against you, and then that was just like, just unbelievable, and I couldn't believe it. So then you start to think that, okay, I won't get indicted for it. Then you start thinking, well, then they'll drop the case before it goes to trial. Then when you go to trial, you say, obviously I'm not going to be acquitted. Convicted for something I didn't do. And then you think, okay, well, maybe the appeal will work. Then you think the habeas will work, and then it just goes on and on. It does not get better.
Yeah, that's powerful, bro, and that's emotional for me, man, because you telling the story of exactly what it's like, and as you tell it, that's what I thought every time. You explained it better than I explained it in this particular instance, man, because every time I thought, you think as an innocent person, you at every turn you think it's gonna work itself out. And then you look up 23 years for me, going on 26 years for you. That's terrible. What has been going through your mind when you knew you was innocent from day one, but then at some point you're able to prove that you're innocent over the last 4 or 5 years or however long since you've been having some action in court and the legal community has supported you? What do you feel now knowing that you're innocent, the world knowing that you're innocent, the prosecutor's office who convicted you is now saying that you're innocent, but I'm still talking to you in prison right now? What does that feel like?
Well, that's what's so puzzling and disappointing, because one of the things, if you read a lot of cases, one of the things they always say in there is that it is better that 10 guilty people go free than to let one innocent person suffer. And here I am suffering over a technicality. So you say that a new trial should have been filed 15 days after my conviction. Well, how can I file a motion for new trial on a certain basis when you hid the evidence for 25 years? How do you comply with it? I could go on, and I don't want to, bash the system like that, but it's like, if we really care about, justice and ensuring that the guilty are convicted and the innocent go free, then some procedural barriers that we throw up, we have to bend for those, especially when it's not somebody abusing the system or just trying to game the system in some way. This is what they try to say is the reason why they have all these procedural rules and stuff. Is that when you know that a person has been trying to be heard, and for whatever reason his case has fallen
This
through
call
the
is
cracks
from a correctional facility and may be monitored and recorded.
through no fault of his own, why do you throw those things up?
Yeah.
Is that making sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do. I understand that we don't understand. That's what it is. I understand that we don't understand. The everyday person don't understand. Why would they do that? Why would? And here's the thing. In the movie Just Mercy, y'all may have not been able to see it yet in there, but the prosecutor knew. He knew that the dude was innocent. I mean, he knew it, but he fought the case as if that was not the case. But he knew. And the dude who played Brian Stevenson, Michael B. Jordan, he went to his house, bro. He went to his house, and he confronted him about it. And he was saying, like,
He confronted the prosecutor about it?
he confronted the prosecutor at his office. The prosecutor stepped outside. He said, I'm trying to have dinner with my family, and you're at my door. And he just told him, man, listen, you know that he's innocent. And he basically broke down and acknowledged that he knew he was innocent, but the community, what will the community say? This is a white, and it was different because it was white, and, white person was killed, white woman was killed. What will the community say? But my point is, for whatever reason, they fight the case. They know that it's no longer the truth what happened 25 years ago. They now know what the truth is. Listen, bro, when Michael B. Jordan left the house, the prosecutor went back in. It was on 60 Minutes that the facts were out that this man was innocent, and his wife was eating her meal or sewing or something, and she was looking over at him like, how could you? His own wife was looking over at him like, how could you be defending this conviction when it's clear that this man is innocent? It's normal people, bro. These are churchgoers. These are community leaders. These are good friends of people, but they do the evilest thing when they contest a case where clearly somebody is innocent, bro. You're waiting for what right now? Where's your case on appeal? Where's your case at on appeal?
Right now we're waiting on the Supreme Court to make a decision on, I guess, whether or not the prosecutor has the authority to file a petition, file a motion for new trial on a defendant's behalf.
You have 1 minute left.
Once our office has investigated and determined that a person either was actually innocent or didn't receive a fair trial.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're going on 5 months for that now.
Final thoughts. Final thoughts. Go ahead.
I want to thank you for everything that you've done. I remember the agreement that we had, and you've been doing everything to try to honor that, and I definitely appreciate that. I want to thank Lindsay. God definitely sent me an angel with her. I want to thank Tricia and Rachel and everybody down at MIP, everybody at Morgan Pilate, all the law students and interns. I want to thank Kim Gardner's office for just having an open mind and looking at the case. And of course, I want to thank my family, friends, and Dan Grothouse. I just want to get that out there, man, because I don't know where I would be without all their support.
Yeah. We gonna catch you on another round, man. I love you. Keep your head up, man. We out here fighting for you.
Goodbye.
You just heard from the voice of Lamar Johnson. It is so hard to hear his voice or any voice of individuals who call me with a claim of innocence, particularly of Lamar, because Lamar and I was locked up together. I came home. He has been left behind. We're fighting to bring him home, but it is hard. It is hard to know that not only Lamar Johnson continues to be in prison, but over 100,000 people is believed to be in prisons across the country for crimes they did not commit. I want you to hear from Lamar's attorney, one of Lamar's attorney, Lindsey Runnels, who's been fighting the good fight for many years and will not stop fighting until Lamar comes home. Let's take a listen for when I was able to sit down with Lindsey Reynolds and hear what she had to say about wrongful convictions here in America. I'm happy to have an opportunity to be able to sit down with attorney Lindsey Reynolds. She is the attorney along with the Morgan Pilate law firm who has been fighting vigorously to bring Lamar Johnson home. We've heard, or rather we've seen the footage that the news has been covering about Lamar. We heard from the circuit attorney, Kimberly Gardner out of St. Louis, Missouri, who's been champion for Lamar as well. We heard from Lamar, the voice of the innocent. Lamar Johnson shared his perspective, and we wanted to wrap this up by hearing the perspective of Lindsey Runnels. Lindsey Reynolds, thank you for being with me and taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down as we put a button on what we've been talking about, wrongful conviction day, the causes and the remedies. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for talking about Lamar. And his legal team is big. It includes a couple of lawyers from Lathrop and, of course, the Midwest Innocence Project.
Yes,
so,
of course, agreed.
Thank you so much for bringing his case to the masses.
Yes. So obviously you believe Lamar. Obviously, everybody believes that Lamar Johnson, many people, believes that Lamar Johnson is innocent. I remember my own self and my own situation. The facts were so clear. I remember what was frustrating to me. My lawyers have shared what was frustrating to them. What is frustrating to you about many people knowing that Lamar is innocent? The facts is out that Lamar is innocent, yet he's not home.
I think that's it, right? That there is such consensus about the facts of the case, and not just from folks on the street and lay people, but from players in the case. The circuit attorney's office, you mentioned speaking with Ms. Gardner, investigated this case for over a year. 70-page report came out of her conviction integrity unit, detailing meticulously each and every error and the evidence of innocence in the case. So it's not just the defense, but it's also the office responsible for obtaining the wrongful conviction has come out and said, not only was this conviction bad, but here's an innocent person. And so when you have those two things existing with the weight of the evidence in Lamar's case, and us still arguing in court about procedural technicalities and deadlines as opposed to the merits, that's frustrating.
Yeah, 100% frustrating. How do we get here? Like, help American citizens understand, like, how do we get here where the facts are so clear and the powers to be are not acting? How do we get here? You've been doing this work for quite a while. How do we get here, in your opinion?
You know, there's some bright spots, you know, where there is some movement, but here in Missouri, you know, we have a kind of unfortunate history. You know, folks have called it the state with an innocence problem, and I think that's right. You know, we get to these places 10 years, 15, 20 after a verdict is rendered, and there is this irrational addiction to the jury verdict at all costs. And we put up these procedural barriers, these hurdles, one after the other in our post-conviction rules that a often pro se and almost always poor person in prison is having to get over and get over and get over. And what's the point of that? It's to close the courthouse doors, and we've just gone far too far in the wrong direction on this, because we don't want endless appeals, right? But there also has to be a caveat to that. There should be no finality. We should not protect finality for an unjust conviction. And when we have the evidence like what existed in your case, for example, in Lamar's case, these are colorable claims of innocence. These are supported by affidavits, exhibits, documentary evidence, testimony, depositions. These are not people coming into court and saying, I'm innocent, but I don't have any proof of it. We have to have a common sense approach to that doesn't take these people's lives, you know, and make them continually litigate, even to get into court for sometimes years, as you are well aware. And for us as a society to not, we want to fix it. It's wrong, we make mistakes, it happens, but we should fix it quickly. And that doesn't matter just for you and people like Lamar specifically, but that is important to the health of the justice system and the buy-in from the American people that this system, while it might err, has the ability to correct itself, and I can have faith that it's going to correct itself. So we have a lot of issues that we need to work through. There's some bright spots, right? We've seen conviction integrity units. We've seen DA Krasner in Philly, places in Dallas, and you know, people doing great work and acknowledging that the system errs, not being wedded to there are no innocent people in prison. I mean, we know it's false. Okay, we know it. Let's fix it. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, that is so powerful. What kind of Lamar's case is not in the issues, the underlying issues of Lamar Johnson's case is not just unique to Lamar Johnson. Help the listening audience understand what about Lamar's case symbolizes other cases of wrongful conviction.
Yeah, there's been thousands now, right, of folks exonerated. And so when we have a body of cases like that, we can start doing the research, the granular understanding of what happened, what went wrong, you know, an assessment of those cases, sort of like an autopsy, right?
Yes,
we go back and
agreed.
look at them. And we have had so many now, and so many great social science researchers have really distilled that. And so the big causes, I mean, as everyone, you know, in the community knows, are, you know, bad eyewitness IDs. We were not good at that, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. We're doing better on that front. Official misconduct, a big problem.
Which a report just come out.
Yes.
National Registry, a report just come out from the National Registry of Exoneration. I've been knowing about this stuff. Many of us have been knowing about it, but I was just so excited to see the National Registry issue a 208-page report and to see that national and local news started picking up on it.
Yes.
Over 50% of wrongful convictions here in the United States is a direct result of police and prosecutorial misconduct. It is an astonishing, damning indictment about our criminal justice system. It lets us know the direct area that we need to be working on moving forward if we're ever going to fix wrongful convictions here in America. But to your point, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, indeed, the report, over 2,000 convictions, innocent folks, cases reviewed, 54%. It gets worse for folks like Lamar, black defendants, even higher numbers. Exculpatory evidence not disclosed is a type of misconduct, existed in Lamar's case in a mountain proportion, and that occurs in more than 60% of all innocence cases. And so those are sobering results, and ones that should be telling us the light is blinking red. What are we going to do about it? And there are things we can do. I mean, there's reforms, but Lamar's case is a comedy of errors. He's got the eyewitness ID, he's got misconduct, he's got incentivized testimony, what folks sometimes call snitch testimony, where someone testifies in exchange for benefit for themselves, not disclosed. So all of these things we know make convictions unreliable. Lamar has almost all of them. And so he's a good case study on that, but I mean, at the end of the day, right now it's about Lamar's life, and when we get him out, maybe we can, start reviewing his case and teaching others. But right now, the number one goal is to get him home.
Yes. What is that looking like for Lamar right now?
Now, he's pending right now in two cases. First, the Missouri Supreme Court, the ultimate decider here in Missouri, is fully briefed, and we're awaiting a decision in that case. And the question there is, does a prosecutor like Ms. Gardner have the duty to do something when she is confronted with evidence of innocence? And if she does she have a mechanism in Missouri? That's the ultimate question before the Missouri Supreme Court, and it's a big one, and it's an important one. He also has pending in the Eastern District a motion to recall the mandate, which would send him back to the trial court as well. So right now he's waiting, as is so often the case with folks in his situation. So we are impatiently waiting right now.
Yeah, any thoughts and prayers are with Lamar. I just spoke to him recently, and he is waiting patiently. He's frustrated. He's definitely hurt, and it's not an easy thing to do. In our final wrap up, about a minute here, Wrongful Conviction Day, raising awareness. What message would you have for the people listening, Lindsay?
Everybody who loves or cares about someone that's in this situation is very interested and is watching the news and is asking the right questions of their elected officials. But I'd like that community to be broader, because even though you may not have a sister or a brother or a child that has been entangled in something as horrific as a wrongful conviction, whenever it does happen, it makes our community less safe. The actual perpetrators are often free to reoffend and commit more crimes, but it also really affects the health of our justice system for everybody. If the police and prosecutors can break the rules, for one, they'll break them for all of them, and that should scare all of us. And when it happens, we need to correct it quickly, and we need to discipline those folks so that the good guys can continue doing the important work of policing and protecting our communities. The same is true for any of us. We should all care about this, whether it's someone that we love or care about, or whether it's just in our community.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lindsay Reynolds, one of the many attorneys for Lamar Johnson, fighting hard to bring him home. Thank you for taking time out today and for being with us. Thank you so much. Wow. Hearing these stories, sitting down with these individuals, those on the front line, those behind bars, those prosecutors, it's sad. It's sad what this country is housing or allowing to let happen. Wrongful convictions is a crisis here in America. We can do better. We get to do better when we decide to do better and a little bit more. We've brought you the news segment about Lamar Johnson, Circuit Attorney Kimberly Gardner. You heard from her. You heard from Lamar Johnson himself, and you also heard from one of his attorneys that's been fighting a good fight for many years, trying to push Lamar out the door. But there has to be more, and we get to be that more together. Will you join us? If you would like to get involved in the Midwest, you can contact the Midwest Innocence Project at the MIP.org. If you would like to learn more about Wrongful Conviction Day, you can go to wrongfulconvictionday.org. And if you would like to learn more in general about what the Innocence Network has been doing, which comprise of a bunch of innocence projects across the country, you can go to the innocencenetwork.org. I'm going to continue to be here. I'm going to continue to be doing this work. If you would like to keep up with me and see what I'm up to next or what we'll be doing for 2021, you can find me at resilienceMode.com. Please don't just watch. Please don't just see this as entertaining. But please, please act. Don't do it for me. Do it for the many men and women who are like me, waiting to come home. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me today. I appreciate you dearly. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.